If you asked me back then, I would have told you I had everything I wanted: a decent career, a cozy apartment, and a man I love more than life itself. Oliver and I had been together for 5 years. 5 years them with someone you thought was forever. We signed the lease on our first place together. Nothing glamorous, just a worn little apartment with squeaky floorboards and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of roasted chicken and coffee. We filled it with second-hand furniture, hand-me-down dishes, and a bookshelf sagging under dog-eared novels. It wasn't much, but it was ours. I worked as a systems analyst, steady income, not flashy, but I was proud of the security I had built. My student loans were finally gone. Every paycheck gave me the quiet reassurance that I could take care of myself and of us. Stability. That was my word, the foundation of how I lived. Oliver, though. Oliver lived in momentum. He was an event planner, thriving on the rush of galas, fundraisers, and high-profile clients. His life was champagne bubbles and glittering rooms, while mine was spreadsheets and carefully balanced budgets. And I didn't mind. I believed balance was what made us strong. I was his grounding force. He was my spark. I was his biggest fan. I bought him new suits when he landed a big client, stayed up late, helping him polish proposals, and listened to him gush about his future until my eyes ached with exhaustion. I thought I was his partner in every sense of the word. But somewhere along the way, cracks began to spread across the foundation I thought was so unshakable. It started with the little things. The way Oliver's voice would take on a sharp edge when he glanced at my laptop. "Your job is so predictable, Diana. Don't you ever want more?" At first I laughed it off, telling myself it was just his ambition talking, but his words stuck like splinters beneath the skin. He compared me to other men friends of his colleagues who were taking risks, starting their own ventures, chasing dreams with reckless abandon. I didn't need to be flashy. I didn't want that life. But every time he spoke with that mixture of boredom and disdain, I felt smaller. And then came Eva. She was one of his clients, a so-called venture capitalist, with a sports car, a diamond smile, and enough confidence to fill an entire ballroom. Oliver talked about her constantly. "Eva really understands my vision, Diana. She sees the ambition in me." The first time it stung. By the fifth time, it felt like a deliberate wound. I told myself it was harmless, that Oliver's admiration was professional, maybe aspirational, but deep inside, a knot began to form. I ignored it because that's what you do when you've built 5 years on the belief that love is enough. You cling tighter. You pray the foundation will hold. But somewhere in the back of my mind, the whisper began. What if I'm not enough? I didn't know it then, but I was already standing on the edge of the cliff, blind to how close I was to falling. The end came on a Tuesday evening. Funny, isn't it? You never think the day your life shatters will be something as ordinary as a Tuesday. I was on the couch, laptop open, reviewing code from work. The apartment was quiet, only the low hum of the fridge filling the silence. Then the door opened, and Oliver walked in wearing a sleek black suit I'd never seen before. He looked sharp, expensive, different. My heart skipped a beat, though not in the way it used to. "I need to talk to you," he said. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. I closed my laptop, smiling, waiting for him to sit down. But he didn't sit close. He lowered himself onto the far end of the couch, leaving a gulf of empty space between us. "I'm going out with Eva tonight," he continued. My stomach tightened, a cold wave crashing over me. "Isn't she your client?" I asked, forcing steadiness into my voice. He looked at me, eyes clear, almost pitying. "She's more than that, Diana. Much more." I waited for him to laugh, to tell me this was a bad joke, but no laughter came. "I'm leaving you." His words were a blade cutting clean through the air between us. Eva and we're compatible. She's not afraid to take risks. She gets me. I need that in my life. I felt my heartbeat in my throat pounding like it wanted to escape. 5 years, Oliver. 5 years, and you throw it away like this. His lips curved into something between a smile and a sneer. "Don't be naive. We all have a plan A and a plan B. You. He gestured at me with a dismissive wave. You were my plan B. The safe option. Predictable. Always there. But Eva. She's plan A. She's the future." The words rang in my ears like a cruel joke. Plan B. That's what I had been reduced to. Not a partner, not someone worth choosing, just insurance. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. To remind him of the nights I stayed awake by his side, the sacrifices I made, the love I poured into every corner of our life. But something colder gripped me. Because in that moment, staring at his smug, careless face, I realized there was nothing left to save. The Oliver I loved, the man I thought he was, had never truly existed. He was a mirage, and I had been the backdrop for his performance. I stood slowly as if underwater. My keys, my wallet. That's all I took. Diana, he called as I walked to the door, his voice suddenly unsure. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The apartment, the memories, the 5 years, I left it all behind in the silence of that Tuesday night. And with every step I took away from him, the word Plan B echoed in my chest like a curse and a warning. That night, I ended up on my friend Clara's couch. She didn't ask questions, not at first. She just handed me a blanket, switched off the lamp, and let me sink into the hollow quiet. The silence of her spare room was deafening, filled only with the echo of Oliver's words, Plan B. I couldn't cry. Not yet. The shock was too heavy, pressing against my chest like lead. The next morning, when Oliver was at work, I went back to the apartment. I moved like a stranger through rooms that had once been a sanctuary. I packed a single duffel bag, a few clothes, my toothbrush, nothing more. The bookshelf, the framed photos, the little trinkets we collected on trips, I left it all. They weren't mine anymore. They were relics of a lie. On the counter, I left a note. Just 4 words, I wish you the best. It wasn't kindness. It was closure. A wire cut clean. I dropped my key beside the note and walked away. The months that followed were a blur, but not in the way heartbreak usually is. I didn't drown myself in wine or rebound dates. No. My grief came quietly like a shadow following me everywhere. At first, the apartment I rented felt like a cell. Bare walls, empty shelves, a hollow fridge that hummed too loud at night. But slowly something shifted. I started cooking for myself again. Not elaborate meals meant to impress Oliver, but simple, nourishing dishes. A bowl of soup, fresh bread, food that tasted like me. On weekends, I laced up my old hiking boots and hit the trails. The first time my lungs burned, my legs ached. But with every step into the forest, I felt the noise inside me quiet. I called my friends again, the ones I had neglected because I was too busy orbiting Oliver's universe. Clara laughed when I asked if she still remembered how we used to binge cheesy reality shows. I was waiting for you to come back, she said softly. Piece by piece, I stitched myself together. Work became more than just a job. For years, I had been the stable one in Oliver's eyes, the predictable Plan B. But when my company landed a major account, I'd been chasing something inside me lit up. I worked nights fueled by determination, and when we closed the deal, I was promoted. With the raise, I moved out of the shoebox rental and into a real apartment. It wasn't flashy, a small 1-bedroom with a narrow balcony overlooking a park. But it was mine. Every object inside, every plant, every photo, every chair was chosen for me, not for someone else. Sometimes I'd stand on the balcony with a cup of coffee and let the breeze wash over me. The ache was still there, yes, a dull throb in the chest where love used to live. But it was no longer fire. It was just scar tissue. I wasn't just surviving, I was rebuilding. And the strangest part, the more I built for myself, the more I realized I had never truly lived before. It had been nearly 2 years since I walked out of that apartment. By then, Samuel and I were engaged. My life felt solid, whole, and peaceful in a way I never thought possible. Then one evening, over drinks, with an old friend, I heard his name again. Have you heard about Oliver? Clara asked, her voice carrying that mix of gossip and pity. I froze. I hadn't spoken his name out loud in so long that it felt foreign, like dusting off a book you once loved, but could no longer read. What about him? I asked, careful to keep my tone light. Clara leaned closer. Eva left him. Turns out she wasn't some big-shot investor. She was a scammer. Used his contacts, burned through his money, left his name tied to debts and failed contracts. His reputation's ruined. No one in the industry will touch him. I sat there staring at my untouched drink. The words should have made me feel triumphant, vindicated even, but instead I felt nothing, just a strange emptiness. The man who once looked me in the eye and said I was his Plan B was now broke, humiliated, and alone. Karma had found him, and it hadn't been gentle. That's when the messages started. The first was from an unfamiliar number. Hey, it's Oliver. How have you been? I deleted it without replying. Then another, and another, each time from a different number, short, vague, desperate. When I blocked him, the emails came. Diana, I know you must hate me, but I really need to talk to you. I made a mistake. I stopped reading after the first line. Then came the voicemail's calls from blocked numbers, his voice trembling, sometimes angry, sometimes pitiful. Diana, please just pick up. I'm begging you. Eva destroyed me. I should have never left you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Some messages dripped with tears, others with venom. I can't believe you won't even talk to me after everything we had. You're a coward. You've always been too afraid to fight for love. I listened once, then deleted them all. When I didn't respond, he tried through others. His mother called me one afternoon. Her voice was kind, apologetic. Diana, sweetheart, Oliver's in a bad place. He says he's lost everything. Can't you just talk to him? He needs a friend. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and spoke as gently as I could. I'm sorry he's struggling, but I'm not the person he needs. I've moved on. Please don't call me about this again. Then came mutual friends, each with the same rehearsed plea. He's really going through it. You're such a good person, Diana. Can't you just help him out? But my answer never changed. I wish him well, but my life is with Samuel now. And the more silent I remained, the louder his rage became. His final message burned with the bitterness I once knew so well. You're pathetic, Diana. You were never brave enough, never woman enough. You'll always be nothing but Plan B. I stared at those words on my screen, and for the first time in years, I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I realized it no longer mattered. His cruelty had no power over me anymore. I thought that was the end. That silence had finally buried the past. But the past doesn't always stay buried. Sometimes it shows up at your front door. The night of our engagement party felt like the perfect chapter in a story I'd finally learned to write for myself. Our apartment glowed with soft lights strung across the ceiling. Friends filled the room with laughter, clinking glasses, the smell of homemade food drifting through the air. I stood near the balcony, Samuel's hand warm against mine. He looked at me in that quiet way he always did, as if I were the center of every room we walked into. For the first time in years, I felt truly at home in myself, in us, in the family we were building. And then the doorbell rang. Claire went to answer it, and the room hushed. A ripple of silence fell as eyes turned toward the door. Oliver stood there, or rather the ghost of him. His once polished hair was messy, his suit wrinkled, his face drawn and hollow. The confident man who had dismissed me as his Plan B was gone, replaced by a shell clinging to scraps of pride. Diana, he said, stepping inside without waiting. His voice was rough, shaky. I need to talk to you, alone. The weight of the room pressed down, dozens of eyes darting between us. Samuel's hand tightened around mine, grounding me. There's nothing for us to talk about, I said, my voice steady. And this is my home. You're not invited. He flinched just slightly. Then his eyes softened, pleading. Please, Diana. Eva ruined me. I lost everything. I made a mistake. You were the one who believed in me, who stood by me. I know you hate me, but I swear I can fix this. We can fix us. The irony almost made me laugh. He had shattered me once, and now seeing the happiness he abandoned, he thought he could simply reach out and claim it again. I looked at him at the desperation in his eyes, and for the first time I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just clarity. I'm not the woman you left, I said calmly. And you were right about one thing that night. You should never settle for a Plan B. His eyes flickered, searching for something to hold on to. I squeezed Samuel's hand, turned toward him, and felt the words rise with certainty. I found my Plan A, and I'm not giving him up for anything. The silence that followed was sharp, final. Oliver's face crumpled. As the truth sank in, he was irrelevant. Not just to my future, but to my present, my peace, my very sense of self. I need you to leave Oliver, I said softly but firmly. This is my family now. You have no place in it. For a long moment, he stood frozen. Then, with a defeated slump of his shoulders, he turned and walked out the door. The life he had lost, the one he thought he could crawl back to, faded with every step he took away from me. Samuel pressed a kiss to my forehead. The room slowly filled again with laughter, voices, warmth. The shadows of the past had finally left my doorstep. And as I looked around at the people who truly loved me, I realized something. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or grand gestures.